So welcome to another board game review from playersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
Today we're taking a look at Clash of Cultures Monumental Edition from Wizkids. So...
Sorry, that was great.
It was. Clash of Cultures is a game that I played about 10 years ago with my brother and my sister-in-law. They had a copy of the original. I had a really good time with it.
And it's a civ building game.
Yes.
Right.
So this is it's 2 to 4 players, civ building. At the time this was released, the original was released, like, they hadn't made Civilization the board game.
Everyone was generic, right?
Yeah, that was like it. And then it was funny because it was kind of Clash of Cultures. There were no cultures in it.
Everybody was the same.
And then they put these big war elephants on the front. There were no elephants in it.
Yeah.
Then they released an expansion with the elephants and the cultures, and everyone was like, okay, well done. So... Now, just barely, they packaged everything all together, refreshed all the components, and you purchased this, gosh, last year? 2021?
Yeah, it was late, when was it? Early 2021, and it came late 2021.
That's right. Yeah. So this is like...
kind of a pre-order, not a Kickstarter.
Bumper edition, because it has the expansion in with it, all packaged as one together.
And upgraded components. They kind of upgraded all the little units and the buildings that you build and made them really nice.
Yeah, so this is a multiplayer, dudes on a map, exploration, civ building, free-for-all style game. I really like that style of game. You know, you can build up your civilization with buildings and technology and resource collection. You build armies and go out and conquest. This one's one of those games where it's not just you bumping up against other people. There are, like, grey, neutral, generic barbarians that you can go and fight to kind of take your anger out on those guys instead of, you know, making someone annoyed at the table.
Yeah.
So
you can do that too.
You can, but you don't have to.
You don't have to, and frankly, if you do... Well, that's one thing we'll talk about later, but if you do, I feel like... it really hampers your chances of winning.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Is any kind of combat in any one of these kinds of games. So, having played this, you know, my memory of the original version was very fond. I had a good time with that. And playing this, it was like, oh yeah, revisiting an old friend. But playing it with 4 players, I played the original game with 3. With 4 players, it was probably more dynamic. For everyone had a slightly different experience. It wasn't just like a triangle of death.
Right.
Where everyone's doing this.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what a 3-player game is. I think the 4 players is like, I'm like negotiating with someone who's diagonally opposed to me to get them to do something to my neighbor. There's an extra little layer in there which I really enjoyed as well. But yeah, the everyone's generic in the base game. Don't ever play that way.
Well, and they have these generic... kind of player boards.
Yes.
And everybody has the same technologies. There's agriculture, construction, maritime, education, warfare, spirituality, etc., etc. There's even government types, right?
Yes.
But these are all the same.
Yeah, and you can like differentiate yourself over the course of the game. I'm
going to go heavy into science.
But like, it's still, you all start out at like ground level.
Yeah.
Whereas when you play with the cultures, you are the Huns, or you
Carthage.
are Carthage. And
I was
you
Carthage.
Just kind of stack this on the side, and you've got these new technologies that are available to only you, and these do have a significant impact on what you can do.
Yeah.
Some of them are very good, and you're like, yes, I'll get those. And then other ones play off of those, or that gives you a bonus in this thing, and you're like, yes, I'll go hard into that. So they do make a difference. Much more than the generic boards. It's a nice addition. I'm really glad that they included it in this game.
And there's a bunch. I mean, there's probably 15. You know, Phoenician, Chinese, India, Persia, Celts, Greece. I mean, it goes on and on.
I think I played as like Maya.
Yeah, you were the Mayan.
And it was...
Brum was the Vikings.
Yes.
John was Egyptians.
Egypt, yeah.
And then I was Carthaginians.
So like...
very different.
And very anachronistic.
Yes.
But like...
Mayans are never going to come into contact with...
the Vikings.
But
right? Like, it's... You know, you think about something like Age of Empires, the old computer game.
Yeah.
Where, like, it's more like that kind of a style game. Discovering stuff, going and attacking each other, or building wonders, getting bonus off of those, scoring victory points from these objective cards that you've got, which are a very cool part
which
of
is
it.
really the way you're going to win the game. And there are 2 different types, right? There are cards that you can by building certain buildings
or technologies.
Like you're going to lay that down. Oh, I scored 2 points because I did this. Or there's the combat style,
which are the normal objectives you score like at the end of the round in the objective phase. The combat ones, as soon as you fulfill those criteria,
slap it down, you get 2 points.
You destroyed a barbarian town, or you were in a combat and one of your horses survived and you won that combat.
Yeah.
Boop, you immediately bop those.
Yeah.
So that's nice. Anytime you've got dual-sided cards where you've got choices. And even the action cards usually had 2 choices in them.
Yep.
You can either do this or this. Anytime cards give you choices, I enjoy that. That's kind of the CDG wargamer in me. Do I use my ops? Do I use my events? Yeah. I enjoy hand management and card management. And you can try to set up combos. Oh, I can get this event to trigger this. And then that will allow me to trigger this thing.
Yeah.
That's enjoyable to do.
Well, and I think it really works well together for what it is, right?
Yes.
I had probably less of a good experience than you did. I lost, but that's not why I didn't enjoy it. I struggled because I was the Carthaginians. I had these really cool elephants, war elephants, right? And I'm like, I want to build these, right? I want to train these, and I want to go out, and I want to fight, and I want to do this, and it just, I wasn't able to get the number of points that I needed to keep up with.
Yes.
And you ultimately won. And the irony of the thing, though, is the game was really neck and neck.
Very.
And one player didn't do any military. And you literally marched a very small army in and took advantage of the movement rules that you had as a culture to split up and kind of take over 2 or 3 of his cities, and I'm like, okay, that just won you the game.
Yeah, and
so
it's interesting because these kind of free-for-all games almost always disincentivize you to do combat. Because every time you do combat, you and your opponent are flushing resources away.
Well, you're not developing technologies that score you. I think you got half a point for every one of these you developed.
Yeah, so you're both harming your economies, whilst this person over here is continuing to grow theirs. Yeah. Exponentially will score more points than you.
Yeah.
Every multiplayer game that's this style has that.
And we've played a couple this year. We played Dark Ages, I think it's called. Dark Ages.
Excellent game. Love it.
Same thing. If you go out and just build units and build units and build units and attack,
you will lose to the person who's doing economy every time.
Unless you wipe them out, but then guess what? You've got 1 or 2 other players that are going to wipe you out.
Yeah, you're
setting yourself up.
The person who struck last will always win.
Yeah.
So it's a very it's something that you just understand going into these games.
I think you need to accept it and play that way.
Yeah.
I went into it wanting, once again, I was Carthage.
Yeah.
I was Hannibal, Hamilcar. I wanted to smash, and I did a little of that, but I fell behind in the other areas. So you got to keep that in mind. I did like about the game the different technologies that individual.
Yes, it's fun.
I thought it was kind of cool. Like the Vikings, they were very into shipbuilding, exploration on the ocean where they could kind of move on to land, and the ship I think turned into a like a settlement.
Yeah, or your dudes could turn into boats that could turn they could just transport very easily.
It was kind of cool. So I think the uniqueness of this game, while everybody's still going after the same technologies generally, you can specialize your own culture enough that you can do some different things and really do those well. And I think that's cool. And frankly, there's a whole box of those, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a bunch.
There's all of these, and you could play this thing 15 times and still not have played every. Well, yeah, you would have played every one.
You're going to have different. You're going to play with these 4. You're going to play with them all, but then the mixture with which you play them also will very much change how a game plays as well.
Yeah. The other thing I really liked about it were the event cards. These are objective, but like every round, isn't there a basic event at the beginning of every round, and then
so you trigger the events when you research 3 technologies.
Right, the event spaces. So you pull a card, and sometimes it's great. Oh, I got 3 free food, or I developed a free technology. But sometimes drought. Your farms don't produce for the rest of the turn, but that was kind of fun. I felt like, it's a little risky. I'm developing technologies, and I'm going to get these events. I kind of liked that aspect of the game. I also really liked that some of them were good, some of them were bad. I loved it when you got the bad ones and I got the good ones. That was like, oh yeah, you know.
But, and then you're looking at, like, I as the Mayans developed a calendar. So one of my little technologies allowed me to look at the top card of the event deck.
Laugh.
And I could pay a culture to put it at the bottom if it was bad and I was about to pull a technology and trigger it. Or I could just not and put it back if it was a good one. I'd do my technology, trigger the event, and the good thing happens. I saw it coming. Like, all these little mechanics, someone on the board has a way to play off of them.
Yes.
Almost everything in every game can be kind of manipulated to your advantage, or to one person's advantage. We'll have a go at something. I thought that was... It's always fun when, the game has all these mechanics, but you can, someone's got their hand in this pot. Someone's got their hand in this pot. I really enjoy that, where they can do that and make it work well.
I also really liked how certain of the buildings, there's like, 6 or 8 different types of buildings, like a market, a dock, fortresses,
there's
observatories, academies. There's 6 or 7.
The pit, the obelisk.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of...
But you can't build some of those until you've actually developed certain technologies.
Yes.
So it encourages you, hey, if that's what you want to do, build those technologies and then you can build those buildings. Ultimately, what you're trying to build is a city with 5 different types of buildings to maximize how many points that's gonna score for you. And then you get that to get resources and develop different things. So that's really what it's about. It's about an economy, building those buildings, doing them well, taking advantage of them to get the resources you need to then build the things. And you need a ton of resources to get wonders. And wonders are like 8, 10 victory points, which is a lot.
You're going to build one of those in a game.
Yeah, maybe one.
If you get 2, you've tried to play into that very hard.
Yeah.
But and it's the other part of the game that I enjoyed is you've got to get your city with the 4 buildings around it, but you can't do that until you've expanded.
Yeah.
Because you can only build a number of, buildings around your city equal to the number of cities you have.
That you founded.
So you have to go out and
you start with 1. Didn't we start with 1?
Yeah, you start with 1, you start with a little explorer who can go and find a new one.
Yeah.
But you've got to build wide so that you can build tall.
Yeah.
And I know, some games don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just build your one fortress and you move over. Build another fortress here. But you have to do both organically. So it forces you to kind of push out. And so now you're having friction with your neighbors. And it pushes you to do that, which means you're more likely to at least have some border disputes, which is always enjoyable, even though it might not be optimal for your play.
Yeah.
That's half the fun of it, is please don't attack me. And they're like, please don't attack me. And you're like, no, you're going to attack me. You're like, no, you're threatening me. It's great. And then the barbarians show up and you're like, oh no.
They attack everybody indiscriminately.
It's so enjoyable with the way that part of it works. And it's just a simple way to do it, of just saying, you can't build as many buildings as you have cities.
I thought it was a very good limiting factor that required you to invest in additional areas in order to get what you wanted to get.
You can't, you can turtle to an extent.
You're not going to win.
But you can't turtle as much as you can in a lot of other games.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate, because that's the way that I play. I'm a very defensive player in these kinds of games.
Yeah.
And this one, forces you to be a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
To make those weaker little cities out in the frontiers. You have to do it. And the barbarians are a real threat, because they're not a threat against your capital.
Right.
They're strong and got your starting forces in it. But they're going to threaten on your outskirts, and
it really sucks to have one of those taken away.
Oh yeah,
by barbarians, and we saw that happen a couple of times. I was protecting mine with my big elephants, so that didn't happen to me. But we saw some of the other players lose cities, and that was really harsh. And I'm like, you should have built at least a couple guys.
And the events that you're playing, will trigger more barbarians. Or it's you can put a barbarian out, so you can put it over here to screw this person.
Yeah.
Because they've got more and more stuff attacking them, or more stronger barbarians.
Yeah.
And then they're going to do the same thing back to you. Mm-hmm. It's a really fun little part of the game as well.
And the economy side of the game, there are these very odd shaped 4-piece kind of hexagonal tiles. and they have different terrains on them, so you can see, if you can see that, there's water down here. So if you build a port, you can actually fish with the fishing technology, and you can get food from there. The other way you get food is the plains, right? You build a farm there, and you're able to collect food. The others, you get wood and iron, and those are all required for you to build buildings and develop technologies. And the more you have of those, the more spread out they are. You can have a couple of cities really close, but you're going to be cannibalizing the same resources. Yes. So this city could collect 3 wood, but that same the city to the left of it can't collect off that wood again. So it's really useless to build them that close.
It forces you to spread out, forces you to interact with the other players, because you want to go further abroad to maximize your city's collection. And then, just as those tiles as an example, I played as the Mayans.
Yep.
You can develop a technology so that mountain can produce food. Mm-hmm. It can produce iron, or it can produce
farming,
gold,
I think,
right?
is what it was called. Yeah.
You can do more stuff with it.
Yep.
And so your technologies and your different cultures really can affect how you interact with the map. I think the Egyptians could use the barren wasteland,
to
develop land and stuff. Like, you can do a lot with your different cultures. They make a huge difference in the game.
Yeah.
And I would never play without them.
Yeah.
Quite simply.
So overall, I liked the game. I just wanted it to be a little more combat oriented.
Yeah, and I don't.
It's just not necessary.
It's this is a tough one to do a whole bunch of combat in. I think, because and I will say it was interesting. The Egyptian player was trying to go for like a technological victory, and was one turn away from absolutely destroying us, and
had no interaction with anybody else.
Basically just did their own thing.
Yep.
Built wonders, almost decked out the entire of their technology board, had bumped a bunch of these technology-based objectives, and had a very strong lead. And had I not gone and invaded them on the very last turn, they would have cleaned the floor with us.
Yeah. So you just contradicted yourself. You're like, you don't need to fight to win this game, but ultimately you needed to fight a little bit.
A little bit. But I think if you just go military...
Yeah, you're done.
I think it's hard, because the economy is so important.
Yes.
Because this player with the economy and... because they were 2 men away from me not being able to do that.
Yeah.
And they had none on the board.
Yeah, he had built no soldiers.
If he'd have built 2 soldiers
odd.
in the course of that game, he would have crushed us.
Yeah, yeah.
And frankly, I didn't know he was crushing us at the time.
Yeah, we were learning the game.
He was going to cash in so many points at the end.
Yeah.
It was going to be like...
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me.
So it's interesting that you can... I think there's several different play styles.
Yes.
You can be a little more antagonistic. You can turtle a little bit. You can build and build and build and really go over the top. I don't think you can win solely doing military. Although I think you can be competitive at it. You just got to build the economy to support it.
Yeah, you do, and it takes, the game has a very limited amount of turns.
Yep.
You've got to build your economy very efficiently, then get that army churning and just go only that.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to basically eliminate a player to take enough of their cities
to take theirs into your fold, and
for you to have enough points to make up for you maybe have less technologies and objectives than someone else.
I would agree with that.
It's just it's very different, that's all.
Yeah. I think this game is a significant step up from what I saw component-wise from the first game.
Massive.
I think the pieces are better. There's cavalry, there's elephants, there's boats. The wonders are very cool. Little pyramid, little statue of Rhodes. I can't remember what are the other ones.
A Colosseum.
Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
So I think they did a really good job in the production. I also really like these recessed mats because you're going to put the little cubes in there, and guess what? You can move it, and it's not gonna spill out. So very well done production wise. I think this cost $130.
Yep.
So it's a lot of plastic, it's a lot of cards, a lot of cardboard, a lot of map tiles. So to me, it's worth it. I want to play it again.
Yeah. Well, and a game. Max players, we played probably about 3.5 hours.
About 3 hours, yeah.
Which that's what it says on the box, which is impressive. And
that was with learning the rules.
yeah, it would be probably a little bit shorter next time.
I agree.
With just fewer learning of the rules.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I had a blast with this. It was nice to play, like, to revisit it, only because it was like, I
20
really
years
liked
ago?
it 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
But like, is it just nostalgia?
Sure.
Do I remember having a good time? I've played a significant number of games since then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was deathly afraid that this was going to suck.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, I'm so sorry that I recommended this game. And it was like bad.
It didn't suck.
No.
Not at all.
I was like, oh yeah, I like remember this.
Yeah.
I remember traipsing across this map, discovering these tiles, fighting each other, and you could do this cultural influence to like
yeah.
take over
We didn't talk a lot about
people's buildings,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very much like it feels like a Sid Meier's game. I don't know. I really,
Yeah.
really liked it. I had a good time with it.
The other really cool thing that we didn't really even talk about was the happiness level of your cities determined whether they could produce resources, and you could overwork them and their happiness level kept going down.
Yeah.
The only thing that did to you is it made it so you couldn't really collect resources from
It was
those.
much less efficient. You couldn't
Yeah.
build as many, like you couldn't recruit as many guys out of there.
Yep.
It was, and then a lot of the events were like, hey, if
Lose-
your city's unhappy,
Yeah.
bad stuff happens. You're like, oh.
So I remember spending a lot of resources trying to just make sure my people were happy. And lots of little interesting elements that I think once you play it again and again, you're going to start diving into and understanding, oh, that's how that works, or that's why I should be
Yeah.
doing that. That cultural influence thing, I can kind of score your city for me if I infiltrate it. And I just thought that was really cool. We didn't really do much of that.
No.
Because it was kind of hard to do.
It's a die roll, which
Yeah.
is not good. And and that's why you get into like, some of the cultures are really good at it.
Yes.
And then you build your obelisks, which protects you
Yep.
against that. Like, you kind of have to tech into that if that's the way you want to go. Which,
Yeah.
again, helps you to specialize and to kind of set yourself apart from some of the opponents.
I think Babylonia was one of those.
You might get
Trying to remember.
steamrolled militarily.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you're switching all of their buildings to your color, like...
Yep.
They might be in control of you from a municipal standpoint.
But you're
you
scoring
have
the
the hearts
point.
and minds of the people.
Yeah, kind of
It's
interesting.
It's a really cute way to do it.
Yeah. So that clash of cultures really came out with the different cultures. So
Yes.
I'm glad I have it. I'm glad it's in my collection. It's a game that I would love to play again. It's also a game that is a little lighter, so you can play with your lighter gaming friends and have a good time. So I enjoyed it. I'm glad we got it. Had a good time with it.
Yes. Clash of Cultures from Wizkids. Check it out if you're interested. Appreciate you tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.
And I'm Grant.